Hello everyone, welcome back to the next edition of Cook With Me Thursday. This week, for the Cook With Me Thursday recipe, I'm going to share with you my grandmother's recipe for what she calls poor man's soup. I'll tell you a little bit about the recipe as I go along and a few of the changes that I've made to it, just because I do things just a little bit differently. But this recipe is super easy and can be adapted to be just about anything you want. So let's get started on making this and I'll show you my grandmother's recipe. Okay, here's what you're going to need. You're going to need some assorted tomatoes. Normally I use home canned tomatoes, but I don't have any. So I'm using just kind of an assortment what I have, which is I've got some crushed tomatoes, I've got some diced tomatoes. You definitely at least want some diced tomatoes because you want the chunks, for the vegetables. This is actually, I know it's hard to tell through it, but it's some frozen mixed veggies. It's what's left in a bag I put in a container. I also have some corn back here, some frozen corn, some frozen peas, just because there's not a whole lot of this left, so I brought out some more. You're going to want some beef broth. You're going to want an onion, some potatoes, and the secret ingredient that you have to make it taste right is a little bit of bacon grease. So I know a lot of people are going, ew, gross, you're not going to do that, but I'm talking, I use about a spoonful. Not a lot, but you need that flavor to make the soup taste right. And then towards the end, I'm actually going to add just a little bit of milk or heavy cream, depending on which one I choose to use. But you need that because you're actually going to make it a little bit creamy. So let's get started on making this. Okay, you're going to start by peeling and chopping up your potatoes and your onions. Okay, something I forgot to mention is you're going to need about 6 to 8 potatoes. It's really going to depend on the amount of soup that you want to fix. Okay, I like to parboil my potatoes. It actually makes it go a little bit faster. So the next step that I'm going to do is go ahead and cut up my onion. And I'm going to use my chopper again. Okay, while my potatoes are draining, Jace, next step is to put my bacon grease in. See, it's not a whole lot, probably a tablespoon and a half is all you're going to need. Let that heat for just a moment. Lightly saute my onions. frozen mixed veggies. My grandmother used a can of vegetable soup, like Campbell's vegetable soup. This is where I changed things just a little bit, and I started using like the frozen or canned vegetables instead of using the soup, trying to get away from all the excess salt and additives that don't really want in my food. So I throw in my frozen veggies and let them cook for just a couple of minutes. Start thawing out. Next, you're going to add your potatoes back in. And you're going to add your tomatoes. And I went ahead and opened everything up and put it in a bowl. And we'll add my beef broth. And another tip, if you have boxes of broth, instead of pouring like this, pour like this, and you do not get where the air where it's kind of gushing out in big gushes. And how much you need is really going to depend on your taste. This is one of those recipes I will try to give you measurements, and I'll probably end up using most of this 32 ounce box of beef broth. But again, a lot of this is going to depend on how much you want to make, and your taste, how soupy you like it or how thick you like it. But also remember that this has to cook for a while because you got to get everything, cooked well. I just parboiled my potatoes. I didn't cook them all the way. Yep. I'm going to use the whole box. As you can see, this is basically just your vegetable soup, and almost like a beef vegetable soup without the beef. But like I said, my grandmother would use lots of potatoes and onions and the can of vegetable soup, and that was all the vegetables as far as other than potatoes and onions that went in it. So I changed it a little bit because I wanted more vegetables in mine, a little more nutrition, I guess. But it was created basically out of necessity. I am going to add, just a little more salt. I know the tomatoes have salt, so I don't want to add a lot more. And I added that or less 2 times before. And we'll add some more pepper. I do have a grinder, I just am choosing to use a shortcut this morning. And you're just going to bring this back up to a boil, or a light boil. It doesn't have to be a full rolling boil. And then you're going to turn it down and simmer until all your vegetables are done. Here's a funny little tidbit for you. This has always been one of my favorite soups. My grandmother, my mama Dot, just she has always made this for me. And whenever she'd ask, what meal did I want? I said, can you make me some soup? And she knew what soup I was talking about, and she would always make this soup for me. So when I got married, I asked her for the recipe. She gave me most of the recipe, but she wouldn't give me one key ingredient. I could make the soup, but I couldn't make it taste the same. I thought, what is the difference? That key ingredient was the bacon grease. And I finally asked her one day. She slipped up and told me, and I said, that's what's different. And she said, what? I said, the bacon grease. I said, you didn't tell me that before. And she said, I was afraid if I told you that you wouldn't ask me to make it for you again. I said, oh no, Mama. I said, you still have to make the soup for me. I said, I just want to know how to make it so I can make it, you know, one day when you can't make it for me anymore. And so she did not want to give me all the ingredients because she was so afraid I would not ask her to make it for me again. And no, Mama, that's her soup. And you know, I am so thankful to have this recipe because this is a piece of her that I will always have and will always cherish. And I can pass it down to my children. And part of my children like it and part don't. Michael and Brian, you know, Brian's not my child, he's my husband. He's not my child. But anyway, yeah, they're not crazy about the soup. They are definitely meat and potato guys. Malia loves it, and Katie really likes it. It took her a little while to get to where she really liked it, but she does too. It's the tomato thing that she's not real crazy about, but she finally does like it. And I think this is the first time Jace is going to have it, so I'm excited to see what he thinks about it. I'm praying he really enjoys it too. But if he doesn't now, I think he will in the future. But that's a little bit of history for you. You know, I don't know exactly when my grandmother created the recipe, and like I said, I know it was out of necessity. It was probably just what she had on hand, and she needed a meal, and this is what came of it. And like I said, it's basically a vegetable soup, or like a vegetable beef soup, just without the beef. And she used water, but since I don't use the can of vegetable soup, which has beef broth in it, I try to use beef broth when I have it on hand. If you don't have beef broth, water works just fine. It really does. It doesn't make a huge difference in the taste. The big difference in the taste is the bacon drippings. So, and yeah, I guess it's kind of a southern thing, but again, you're not using a ton, and it just gives it that added flavor that it's just something different. And if you don't have it, it doesn't taste the same. So, anyway, I'm going to clean up a little bit while this is cooking, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, my soup is done. Potatoes are tender. Maybe. That one still might need a little bit more, but it's basically done. We're not going to eat for a little while. I'll turn it all the way down. I'll put it over here on the simmer eye, and just keep it nice and hot, and then Brian can stir it every so often. I'm going to add, I've got heavy cream. If you can get my fingers out of the way. I'm just going to add just a little bit. I don't even think it's a quarter cup. It's just a little bit. If I add any more, it wouldn't be any more than a quarter cup total. You might need just a smidge more. Okay, I almost forgot one ingredient that you'll need to add to this soup, and that is a cup of Italian pasta. You can use elbow pasta, elbow noodles in place of this, but this holds up better. This is just a, I'll pull the camera down here. This is just it's a small noodle, but they're thicker and it's a little more dense, and it holds up well to just being in this, like a liquid longer. Let me show you the pasta, and I'll show you I'm getting ready to add it to it. Okay, here is the pasta. They're just little small round pastas. Like I said, they're denser and they hold up better in liquid. I did add a little bit of water, about 2 cups worth, because it was going to be too thick to add the pasta to. but because the pasta will absorb some of the liquid and it will thicken the soup back down. So 2 cups of water for about 1 cup of pasta, and you don't want to add more than a cup of pasta. The elbow noodles, you know, normally I'll do those about 2 to 3 handfuls. I have smaller hands, but so that'd probably be about the same amount, because if you get too much in there, and then it will continue to absorb the liquid and it will continue to make the soup thicker and thicker and thicker. So you'll just have to keep adding water to thin it down, and then the flavor isn't as good anymore. You add the pasta roughly about 10 minutes or so before you're ready to serve. And in that 10-12 minutes, that pasta will be cooked and ready to go. My grandmother always used elbow noodles. I changed to the ditalini pasta because it holds up better over time. Okay, my soup is done. You're not going to see me eat it today. Sorry, I'm headed out to the dentist, so I am not going to eat right now. But I hope you enjoyed this recipe and the little bit of history I gave you behind it. This is, like I said, it's one of my all-time favorite soups, and it has wonderful childhood memories for me. Anyway, I'd love to hear if you try it. Just leave down the comments below. If you do like the soup, give it a thumbs up. Let me know that you do like it, and it lets me know that you want me to continue doing this type of video on my channel for you. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss a new video when it comes out. So until next Thursday, I'll see you later. Bye.